Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of the Rich and Turbo Heavy Half Hour. My name is Rich. Find me on all the socials at rich.piva and on X at FuzzDoomRip, doing reviews for Musicpedia of Metal as a Doom Charts contributor and also as a sponsor for this year's 2026 Tampa Doom and Gloom Fest 3 with a ton of really cool bands, including my boys Florist, who actually opened for our guest today. But before I get to that, let me say hi to
Not
Turbo.
much, man. How
Turbo,
you
what's
doing?
going on?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Can you hear us, Turbo? There he is. Hey, Turbo, how are you? Um, I can, yeah. Cool. So we're very excited, and I mentioned earlier, a couple seconds ago, that this band opened for Florist when I got to see them with Truck Fighters, and as well as another band from Tampa called Liquid Pennies. We have Paul from Restless Spirit with us. Paul, how you doing today?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Excellent, excellent. And I was just commenting, it looks like a lovely Long Island afternoon in your background there, which is I kind of miss a little bit. So we're here to talk about the new record called self-titled record called Restless Spirit. Comes out on Magnetic Eye Records on May 8th. Um, and Turbo and I have had some time with it, and damn, it rips. It's killer. I think the thing that I love about you guys is you're able to keep it heavy, but also so melodic and earwormy as well, which is something that I really really dig, and I think goes to some of the stuff that we probably both like musically and are fans of. The thing I'm reading a lot about this record when I look at some of the bios or like how raw it is and how kind of back to basics it is. Was that something that you were going towards for this record, or tell us a little bit about how this one is coming to be for those of people who aren't lucky enough to hear it like Turbo and I early.
Yeah, I mean, After Image was like we wanted shorter songs because we felt like we did kind of everything we set out to do on Blood, which is the album prior, and that was pretty proggy. And so everyone was calling it like progressive sludge and progressive doom, and I was like, that's cool. I don't want to do that anymore. So we just, we were like, I never want to do the same thing twice. You know what I mean? So, I mean, on that record, we had it was only 5 songs and then 2 interludes, but the songs were all like close to 10 minutes apiece. Um, so on After Image, I was like, let's do some shorter songs and really just get like straight to the point. And then on the self-titled album, we feel like we pulled from just everything. So when it's like back to the basics, I feel like what we meant by that is sort of just like removing any sort of like pretense or like, like on After Image, we did say we want some shorter songs. On this album, we did not say anything. We just went in. The way we write is very like stream of conscious. I just get in a room with Gusmo, our drummer, and we just go for it. It's really just like jamming. And we usually write one song a jam session. I mean, like almost every single song on this record and all of our records are written in the span of like an hour. I don't really go back and change too much. Um, I think there was a little more fiddling on After Image, um, which is why we say this is a little more back to that original style, just going for it and hoping for the best.
It's I don't know if I'm just hearing it or if I'm being influenced by some of the bio and the reviews so far, but it's almost like I'm not sure if you recorded it or any differently, but it's almost like like this more raw and fuzzy kind of, I don't want to say garagey, but a little bit more like just raw recording of it. Is am I hearing something there, or is there my
That
imagining?
I don't think you're imagining it because that's what we were going for. But funnily enough, it was recorded at the same place. The difference was the record prior, what we sent it elsewhere to be mixed by John Nunez from Torch. And so, of course, if you have Nunez working on an album, it's just going to be like abrasive as fuck. Like it really, and that record just like slams you. I know the one complaint I had from a bunch of people, which I disagree with, but kind of get where they're coming from, was that it was just too loud, you know, too loud and too abrasive for the style of music that it is. And I kind of get that, but for the subject matter, that's kind of what we wanted, right? So I was like, all right, cool. Because I really don't care if people like our music or not. We make it for ourselves, but if the intent is there, like we know not everyone's going to love everything we do, but just from that feedback, I was like, okay, the mission worked, whether or not you liked it. But for me, I don't want to say easy listening, but because I don't think it's easy listening, but something less abrasive on this. So we had Forrestal, from the Animal Farm, who recorded both albums. He mixed it in-house. And, we kind of wanted to just go back to sort of like, you remember when, you're just like a kid, and you don't have the most expensive recording equipment, and all this processing and shit. And funnily enough, to do that, we really there is, we worked on like thousands and thousands of dollars of studio gear, but the intent was to just sound like three guys in a room making music. So yeah, and I always also say, like, back to the basics, um, in terms of just not so much the songwriting, but the approach to it. Um, because, like I said, we really never go in with any sort of like, oh, I want it to sound like this. The most we've ever done was, like I said, on After Image, saying we want shorter songs. Um, and this record just ended up being, we have some longer. I think we have the longest song we've ever done, the final track, and then we have some of the shortest songs we've ever done. So it's just kind of, all over the place. Um, yeah, we're really happy with the way that it came out.
To me, it's your most straight up, like, old school metal record of the ones that I've heard. Like, even your video for the Burning Need, it looks like something I would have seen at, like, 2 o'clock in the morning on Headbangers Ball in, like, '87 or something, right? Like, like, the scenes and the way it was shot, and, like, the cemetery and the snow and everything, it just reminded me of that, and I feel like listening to this record, it reminds me of that kinda old school metal side of things. Not like the thrash stuff, but, like, just like the straight ahead metal stuff that would, occasionally get a spin or 2 on Headbangers Ball late at night, every now and then. So, that is for me, a gigantic compliment that I'm giving you there.
No,
You know
it,
what I
it,
mean?
it it's funny that you say that, because I think Gusmo said, like, so Mark did, our bassist, he did the video, and we compiled it just from like GoPro footage on tour, or even just like cell phone. Like, we just like stole it from any source we can get. It wasn't really like we didn't have somebody come with us and film it. But Gusmo was like, I feel like this is something I would have seen like on Headbangers Ball, like growing up as a kid, or like some like old like Crowbar videos. So it's really funny that you say that.
Yeah,
I g-
like, almost I'm trying to, like, picture a couple of them. I just remember also, like, some of the Trouble videos
yeah.
from Manic, like, they were, like, very '70s, but you could they, like, tried to do something that looked older, and I don't think you guys necessarily tried to do something that looked older, it just came out that way, probably because of the stuff that you listen to and love and have been influenced by, but yeah, it's perfect. Was that was done on the Truck Fighters tour, or was that was done just throughout the some of
Dude,
the other tours that you've done?
we pulled from everything we could, because we were like, we tried to do everything in house, that we could this time, just because the deadlines were kind of tight. I mean, even Red and Tooth and Claw, the second single, that was filmed in our drummer's girlfriend's tattoo shop, which is basically like our home base. And we just had one of our friends from work come and shoot it. And then once again, Mark edited it. So, you know, we really tried to just like keep everything as DIY as possible, and do what we can ourselves.
I love that, and I think that's one of the other things that I was reading in the bio from Magnetic Eye, kinda like the working man's hardworking, metal band out there. And I know you guys are road warriors. And I just saw that you guys announced a tour with Gozu, which is pretty friggin' awesome. So
Yeah.
is that like an ethos that you guys wear as like a badge of honor, like just kind of a hardworking band on the road doing your thing?
Yeah, because I think a lot of what this is hard work. And I think a lot of bands fail to realize that they sort of get ahead of themselves. Especially younger bands. Like it's easy to get excited when you get that first taste of like, you go from playing to like two people to, like 50. It's like we're on top of the world. And but that's really where the hard work begins. Um, you know, you, there, you have to sustain that, and you can't ever really be resting on your laurels and just expecting that, you put out like one single and the world's just going to blow up and, everyone's going to be following you around and clamoring for you. It took a very, very long time for us to catch on. And I think that's evident on the fact that, people only in the past, I would say 4 years really well, since our second album, which is 2021, I think. Um, but we've been playing together, you know, in this band for 10 fucking years, you know, and the first like five or I it might even be 11 years. My math is so fuzzy because we went through a bunch of different names, but the three of us have been playing together for like 10 or 11 years, and it took a long time for anyone to like pay attention. Um, And I remember, when we signed with Magnetic Eye, because we did everything ourselves before that. Even when we first released Blood, we made our own label. Because we were like, fuck it, like why not? Like let's print our own vinyl. Like let's hire our own PR. Let's do it all ourselves. Like we're kind of smart. And I was like, man, we're gonna be sitting on these vinyl for like decades. And it just I don't know, we just like posted it to Bandcamp, and we sold out of fucking pre-orders. Like we sold out of records in pre-order. I actually had to pull some off so we would have some on tour. And that was like, whoa, like what just happened? Because we were doing it ourselves. And for years we were kind of just like, I don't want to say ignored, because I'm just not sure that people knew about us. But whatever happened, that really worked in our favor, and that brought us to where we are now. Um, but yeah, we totally work hard. I'm not so sure if I would see it as a badge of honor, as opposed to just like that's just how we look at it. I try not to be like prideful in anything like that, because the way that I see it is it's more just it's what you have to do if you want to do it in any measure of success. And a big part of it is like it's a big sacrifice to go out on the road. I mean, you have to fucking pull me out of my house to get me out,
Yeah,
you
you
know?
were telling us that last time. You're a hermit until you're not, right?
Yeah, and then it's like, well, I have no choice now. So it's like that dichotomy of really having to push myself to, go out of my comfort zone and yeah, work for it. Because you can't just sit on your ass and expect the world. No.
Did you grow up on the island? Did you grow up on Long Island?
Yeah, I moved
Okay.
away for a little bit when I was like 24. I don't know. I lived in North Carolina and Virginia for like a year and a half, and I was like, I gotta come back. Like, fuck, I can't do it.
Public school, the Long Island public school education, you can say whatever about it, but I think it kind of builds some of that into you. My dad was a teacher and a principal at a high school in Long Island, and I think there's something about that, something about just things that I learned there that was very interesting. I don't want to get into Long Island education or anything, but like I don't know, man. Like, and just like the people around me, and not just necessarily people at the school, but just the people around me of where I grew up, just had that kind of want to do stuff. And there wasn't a lot of sitting on your ass and worrying about whatever. There was a lot of push to get stuff done, to learn stuff, to grow, which was an interesting thing, and which kind of I learned a lot about just being on Long Island, being around those people, and the way that the people in my sphere of influence kind of helped me figure some of that stuff out. Um, as a lifelong Long Islander, did that influence you at all? Just like growing up in that area, into kind of what brings you out there today, or how you approach things today?
For sure. I mean, there's definitely like a hustle, and it's a fast way of life on the island. I definitely think that the way that I grew up influenced my approach to, well, pretty much anything, but especially when it comes to working hard, for sure, because it was sort of like, if you want something, you have to go out and really get it. And then, but I mean, beyond like education, I mean, just like the music scene as a whole, like, we grew up surrounded by hardcore bands. And that, the whole thing about hardcore is, the rejection of, mainstream, and, or at least it was. And, you go and you do it yourself, like you make zines, or, you book your own shows. And, we play a lot of hardcore shows, or we used to. And I've been in hardcore bands my whole life, Uh, I think that ethos really spills over into not only our approach, but our sound. Like I definitely think we have a little more of a metal, heavier edge than, I don't want to say heavy because it's subjective tone, but I think you know what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Than a lot of, stoner doom bands, like whatever we are at this point, because I don't even know.
yeah, yeah. I wouldn't call you either of those things. I just think you're just a heavy rock band, and if you had to call you something, be heavy metal would be the two words I would use there at this point. The hardcore thing I used to, when I lived on Long Island, it was like the guys in VOD I went to high school with, and Mind Over Matter was big, like these like metalcore, hardcore metalcore bands that were coming up. And I left before the whole emo thing took off, which I don't know if I'm happy or not about that, but there were some good bands that came out of there.
Oh, for
I'll listen
sure.
to a couple brand new records every now and then. And even Taking Back Sunday had a good record, their first one. But yeah, it's interesting. And I just remember growing up on Long Island, and having certain records that were rites of passage. But when I was growing up, one of those was, I don't know if we talked about this, but do you remember the band Scatterbrain at all?
No, no.
Okay, I'll have to send you this record. There's a record called "Here Comes Trouble" by Scatterbrain. It was like the Long Island rite of passage to be a metalhead. I'll send it to you. It's you probably missed it by a few years, because I think I'm older than you, but I think you'll dig it, and I think you'll see what I mean by that. Turbo, you're back. Hey, Turbo, can you hear us? Okay.
Is that the band? Is that isn't that the one that put out the song called "Dude"? Don't call me dude.
Don't call me dude. You got it, Turbo. Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
I'll send you a link, Paul. It's they're a little jokey, but the guitar player, what like did he was the teacher for like all the kids in my like 20-mile radius of all the kids who love metal. So I think it'd be interesting as a little Long Island history lesson for old people like me. Um, Turbo, I know you have some questions for Paul now that you're back. What do you have for him?
Now, I don't know what y'all talked about. What the
His
hell's going
internet
on a
connection sucks
fucking
today.
computer?
Turbo, it's okay. Wait, we lost you again. You there? Not yet. All right, I'll
Yeah, I
ask you
guess
another
so. My
question, Paul.
computer's doing a
Uh,
bunch of weird shit.
nope, you're back. We hear you okay. Try one more time.
Right.
Yeah, he's delayed by
I
us.
don't
All
know.
right.
I'm
Oh, he's
I may have missed it. You mentioned subject matter earlier on the album, about the album, what you're talking about. So what is the what subject matter is being approached on this album?
It's really, without being too personal, because it's not really my story to tell, but um I went through like a significant, amount of loss, me and my wife experienced. And, you know, the idea behind it was sort of like perseverance in the face of something so devastating as that, something that, you know, you sort of like worked your almost like wanted your whole life, and then it's there, and then one day it's not, which I know is very, very big. But you know, that experience, and I also like, I never want to really give like the specific details of any sort of situation that I've written a song about, because I feel if I do that, then it's not open to interpretation anymore. You know what I mean? And I would like everybody, like, if you listen to something and it resonates with you and you feel that's what it's about, I would not want to take that experience away from another person. I mean, I've been asked, and I've been encounters on tour many times with people. They're like, you know, this song really resonated with me because you know, this happened in my life, and like I could hear that in this specific song. Did you write it about that? And I would always be like, if that's what you think, then yeah, you know what I mean? So that's really my reasoning for never truly giving like the deep, deep story, because I want to keep things open. Um, so basically, I wanted to write a more positive record where, you know, it was sort of like, wow, this is fucking terrible. What I'm going through right now is fucking devastating. But it's almost like the sister album to After Image, because on that album, and this I spoke a little more about it, but so I lost my stepfather from Alzheimer's very quickly. Like you know, he was fine one day, seemingly in the next, it was not. So, you know, I went through a really rough time, and I sort of wrote a story about, you know, how I could let that experience and that anguish and depression that comes along with it, how I could let that uh, ruin my life. Uh, because you have a choice when you're faced with adversity. So I wrote that album sort of like a letter to myself to behave, right? And on this, you know, I thought, oh, I'm done with all the sad stuff, you know. And then, of course, the way that life goes, something else happened. And I was like, let me use this as fuel to really push through and write more about positivity and starting again and finding your center, and really just being comfortable with the fact that, you know, life is filled with tragedy and hardship, and, you know, we all have a choice. So you have to find a way to, I don't even want to say cope with it. You have to find a way to succeed in life.
Yeah, push
And that's
forward.
that. Yes, that's the. But it's a little more than pushing forward, I would say, because yes, it's pushing forward, but I see that, you know, there. I don't ever want this album to come off like, oh, things suck, so you got to like move forward. It's like the positivity I'm talking about is like things may suck, but like you may find it in yourself to become greater than you ever were, and to create situations for your life that were greater than you could have ever imagined. Um, in many aspects of life. Uh, so that's why I say it's sort of like the sister album, because one is so negative. One was After Image was like, what if I just went down this like really dark path and like let like just fuck my life up completely, you know? Um, so yeah, that's the subject matter, I would say, for sure.
I
Right
really
on.
love that because as someone who has gone through some stuff myself over the last couple of years, losing my father, for example, there are times that I'm just like, it's going to be what it is now, like, and just settling, like, I'm just going to be sad now because I don't have him anymore. But then, like, who wants to do that, right? Who wants to do that for the rest of your life? And sometimes it takes a little while to like get out of your head that like bad thing happened and now everything's going to be at this level now because that bad thing happened. It's like, I love how you're saying not just push forward, but like amp it up. Like, don't just don't just settle for this is the way it is now because bad shit happened. I actually love that, and I'm going to listen to this album even more with that in mind, which is kind of a very cool thing. Also, when somebody told me like what Lou Reed's Perfect Day was about, it ruined the song for me. I didn't care. Now I know. I had a different vision of this song in my head. Now I know it's about him and his mistress and being a terrible husband. And bragging about it kind of. Um, so yeah, I love that we don't need to know all that much, but I do want to ask about a couple specific songs because
Yes.
number one, on Hollow, the friggin' drumming on that song, like
Yeah.
holy shit. Um, did you light a fire under? I mean, he's a great drummer all the time, but like suddenly, like that song for some reason really jumped out at me as on the drumming on that particular track.
I am Gusmo's biggest fan. I think he's the best fucking drummer in the world. There's nobody else in the world that plays like him. He's insane. He's, the way that I always picture it is like we're like this close to going off the rails, but he just like catches it, And I still don't remember how that, and I think that song particularly, in particular, especially with the crazy break, whatever the fuck is going on. I don't even remember. That's one of those things where it's like we were just playing, and it just I play. So like we're playing along, right? And we could almost like sense what we're gonna do next. And I was like, all right, I'm gonna go for this part. And for some reason, we just like locked in, and he went for it as well. And I was like, what just happened? Like that was no, that was insane. Like why did we do this? Because it was such a pain in the ass to get it right in the studio. But yeah, man, I like no ego, no anything like that. Like I never want to be like I'm the singer. That's why people listen to this band. I'm the guitar player. I want people to like come away from this and be like, that dude can fucking play drums, man, because he can.
That was the
Um,
first note that I took on the record. Was about Hollowed. The second note was your vocals, because I feel like every album your vocals get it better, and you feel like I feel like you're even more and more comfortable being the lead singer of this band, especially on Desolation's Wake and how you layered the vocals on Red and Tooth and Claw. Like and that one specifically to me, Red and Tooth and Claw, is like the most classic metal song that you guys have done. I think because of the layering of the vocals and how that is set up. Are you feeling, I don't know if you've ever felt, a lot of people I talk to who are guitar singers who started as guitarists are, I don't want to say forced into, but move into a singer role. And it's not like the thing they wanted to do or the thing they're most comfortable with. But I feel like I hear your progression as a vocalist as these records go on.
I could I could feel the progression. I think that I'm singing better than ever. And I do think that's just a little bit more of, being comfortable. It wasn't ever so much that I didn't want to be a singer. It wasn't really so much of a thought. It was more so that I had this song in my head, right? I feel that it would probably be easier if I expressed it myself. And I didn't even know I could do it. So, I just kept doing it. And yeah, the more comfortable you get, the easier it is to like make some decisions that you wouldn't have previously. I mean, I used to record vocals like I didn't want anybody in the room, like just me and the engineer. That's it, because I just wasn't comfortable. Now I don't give a shit, like I'll do it like wherever. But a lot of that is just being comfortable, and I think it's sort of like being a good guitar player. Like I think that the key to being comfortable is confidence in your abilities. And it took a long time for me to be confident in my vocals because I was never a singer, right? Like I've been playing guitar since I was 12, but then one day, you know, within the band, I'm the singer. So it's like I'm learning as I go. Um, and yeah, I appreciate you saying that. And I do agree. Like if there's one thing that I even took away from listening back on the album, I was really happy that I was able to nail um a lot of those parts. And the biggest thing is, as I was saying, I was more happy than anything that I was able to articulate uh, what I was hearing in my head, and being able to successfully do that. Because oftentimes I might hear something in the past and I'll try and sing it, and it's like I can't do that. Like I don't have the range, or I don't really know how do I get there, you know. But I think from like the past couple of years touring and doing it all the time. Like I don't practice at home. I don't at all. Um, so the only real practice I get is like on tour. And I think just from doing it and, being comfortable being on stage and talking to people or, giving them shit, which is something I do quite often, but, that's more so just me calming my own nerves. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
A lot of it is, a lot of being in a band is just being comfortable and not nervous.
love it. Turbo, what else you got for Paul?
Um, so what is this? Your eighth album? Seventh,
Now,
sixth?
feels like it. This is our
Feels like
fourth
it.
full length, but I think, let me see. I think it might be like our 10th total release if you include just singles and EPs.
Yep, I'm
But
looking on
fourth full
Bandcamp
length.
now.
Yeah, we have a bunch. And I think there are some that are even not on Bandcamp, like some of the singles we've done. Um, but yeah, I mean, we've put out a lot of stuff at this point.
Uh, s- so I was curious about the reason for the naming of the album after the band's name, if this was significant in a change of style or a personal, this is who we are, or this is another chapter that before we move to the next chapter, anything like that.
Yeah, I think it's both of that. I mean, Gusmo saw it as, moving to a new chapter, sonically, and also, I interpret it as, I'm not naming it anything. There's no pretense. Like this album is what this album is, and I wanted the music to just like stand on its own. You know, um, I even wanted like some like super minimalistic artwork, and that obviously didn't happen.
I was gonna say, I don't think that
No,
happened.
no, no. But I really, like I wanted it to just be like no name artwork is like you barely notice it, but that like I said, that didn't happen. And but I do think that the album is strong enough where it doesn't really need a name. And it is our fourth album, and Led Zeppelin 4 is also famously doesn't really have a name. So I was like, oh, okay, it's I see a parallel there because we're always listening to like the classics. So it's like it's a little nod there as well. I mean, we're always stealing from other bands. Like I try to have at least like one name from another band or like song name uh on an album that I could fit in. And I've successfully done that on every single album besides this one.
Gonna say, what's which one on this one? But yeah, no, not so much on this one. The interesting thing, I want to get to the cover of the record, but in the video, the first video that you guys did for the Burning Need, you're wearing a Rush shirt. And I don't think of you guys necessarily kind of rushy, right? But like when I listen to Phantom Pain, for example, I get a little of that. There's some synths on that song. It's long, and it's also it's not. I don't want to say the Restless Spirit ballad, but there is like a tempo change to that one, and it's there's an intensity to that track. If you don't mind, tell us a little bit about that track. We obviously get to hear it before others do, but
Yeah. Well, I mean, first of all, Rush is one of our favorite bands of all time. And speaking of that, like After Image, the album prior, that's a Rush song. Like that's where I got that idea from. And I crafted the whole album around the concept of what that was because I'd never heard that word before. So I looked it up. I was like, oh, that's really cool. That applies perfectly to what I'm trying to say. Um, but yeah, huge, huge, huge Rush fans, and yeah, that does go into a lot of the proggier stuff that we have, as well as I think on Gusmo's part, he loves Dream Theater. So
mm,
anytime he can get like proggy, he will. Um, I don't even want to say it was like once again not like a conscious thing. Like the song just like kept going, you know. Like we thought it was over, and there's a wait. How about this part, you know? And actually there's a lot of we definitely knew while we were talking about it, while we were playing. I was like, we've never done just like a typo negative dirge, you know, like let's just do it now, you know, like that will bridge this part with this part. And then yeah, I mean that end like almost like weird time signature part where the vocals are a little lower and softer. That I was hearing a lot of Rush in that. As long as as well as Tool and Coheed and Cambria, believe it or not, which is another one of my favorite bands. Um, yeah, I mean, and that song, I think that is the epitome of what I was trying to say on the album, where you know it's sort of you know you're going through something depressive and something pretty tragic, but at the end, like the final lines, it almost comes off as I heard like triumphant, a little bit melancholy because you knew what you just went through, but I feel that it encapsulated the album as a whole, and it made perfect sense to end on that note. And I especially wanted to say something positive at the very end, and then end with a cool guitar solo, and then do something we've never really done, which is like orchestral strings to lead out the the album as a whole.
Very cool. And it's funny, like, because you have a typo tattoo, don't you? Don't you have a yeah? And I don't like the I don't think I ever really hear a lot of typo in your stuff. It, it's interesting because you can be a huge fan of a band and not ever really sound like them, I guess. Or you probably take some influence just from things that we might not hear. Like it might not be obvious to us, right? So I found that very interesting that this is where you bring that particular band up.
Yeah, I mean, there are parts where I can go through and be like, in my head, this sounds like this band, this sounds like that. But, you know, at the same time, once again, you could probably hear because of, you know, the music that you've listened to that shaped your perception of music as a whole, you will hear something completely different. And I think that's a really awesome thing. I think also, you know, straddling the lines of like giving tribute to another band as opposed to just ripping them off completely is very important to us because I never want to be like, you know, that riff is or that song sounds exactly like this band. Like I don't want to do that. I want to be able to stand on our own and create something that's uniquely us, whether, you know, for better or for worse, you know.
Awesome. And I think also with a band like Typo, there's no in between. There's only it's like either subtle or you're in. You're like all in to be like a Typo because they're so nuanced and sound so different than everything else, in my opinion. It's
Yeah,
hard to just like say, oh, we're influenced by them. We sound a little bit like them. It's more like you either sound like them or you don't, and it's very subtle.
I would say that like our type of negative influence come, you know, the only like part that comes in is I like reverb on my fucking vocals and I like chorusy guitar parts. But beyond that, like I think it's a fool's errand to write anything that would sound really too much like Typo Negative because they're too unique. Or covering them for that matter. Unless you're gonna do like a really different rendition of one of their songs, it's like just leave it the fuck alone. I've heard bands do good covers, but if you try and just take them and just replicate it, it's never gonna happen. It's never gonna sound good. Stop it.
Yeah. I
So
think Paul Harrer did a pretty good cover of Love You to Death, if I'm remembering correctly.
they
That was
they did an absolutely great one. Because you know, you could hear the typo negative in it and like it's obviously it's the same song, but they did it where it was like this is Paul Bearer playing a typo negative song as opposed to this is Paul Bearer trying to sound like Typo Negative. I think that they did a really interesting interpretation of that song, and I really like it. And I don't like most Typo Negative covers.
yeah, it's not
Actually,
that song.
Heavy Temple covered the same song, um,
Okay.
and they I think they did a really good job as well as putting their own spin on it, which you know I applaud them for that.
I'll have to go check that one out. I don't think I've heard the Heavy Temple version.
It's good.
Um, Turbo, anything else for Paul while we have him?
I was checking my notes from the last time we talked, and I had in there that something about singing like Pete Steele, and I was like, what does this have to do with anything? Because when I listen to this album, of course, it doesn't sound anything like this. So I don't know why I put that in there, but you know, that was I ties into the typo negative thing. So I don't
the
know.
reverby vocals or
Yeah.
and the the other thing that's interesting about this record too is your guitar playing, and your guitar playing is almost the way it's recorded sounds as raw as you have ever sounded. Like you can hear all the squeaks, you can hear all of like
Yes.
the like everything to it. And that's why I think I mentioned earlier like this garage kind of feel to it. And I think it's your guitar playing the way that it's recorded and the way that it sounds, which is awesome. There's no um over shininess to it, like over cleaning it up or anything like that. It sounds like it is what it is, and that I think is one of the other really awesome things about this record. Am I hearing that correctly too?
100%. And I appreciate you saying that. Um, I think that my whole thing with look, I'm a fucking dirty guitar player. Like there's noise everywhere. There's so much feedback going on all the time. And to try and get away from that, I feel that's not the way I play. Like I make a mess sonically when I play. I'm often very sloppy. Um, but I like the way it sounds. So I want there to be sloppiness. I want there to be feedback that might sound unnecessary. Like there's a lot of guitar squeaks, actually in the intro to Phantom Pain, where it's like almost like where's that coming from? That's just the way that I play. Like my hands just I think like the amount of fuzz that I have. I use way more fuzz than any human really should. Like everybody tells you, just get like a crunchy amp kind of and then use the fuzz. I'm like, no, fuck that. I'm diming my amp and I'm diming my pedals because I like the way it sounds. You know what I mean? And so when that happens, you're going to get a crazy amount of noise, right? So if you were to cut it out, I feel like it wouldn't really be authentic to like if you're sitting in my living room listening to me play, which would be kind of weird, I guess. But why are you watching me? Um, it will sound very noisy and very very messy, even at very quiet volumes. It's just the way that I play it, and I wanted to keep that. Well, I wanted to keep that on the record. Same way with Gusto. I mean, man, he don't use a click track. He never has. I think he did on one EP, and it fucked him up so bad. He's like, I'm never doing it again.
I think that's why when I mentioned Rush, like Rush to me always seems like such a precise band. You know what I mean? They're like precise in everything you do. And you guys are not in the best kind of way, right? It's an interesting way that you're such a huge Rush fan. He's a prog guy on the drums, but like the messiness is what I think is one of your strongest and most unique qualities, which is and that might go back to maybe playing in hardcore bands or the influence of those types of things or whatever it is. But I think it's a charming factor of Restless Spirit that like the realness of what we're hearing on those.
No, also I appreciate that. When it comes, in terms of messiness and stuff like that, I mean, it's pretty fucking apparent too if you really listen closely. Like, on After Image, this is the most, I would say, obvious, but on the song of Spirit and Form, the last chorus is significantly faster than the rest of the song because we were just like riled up at that point. We're just going for it. I think it's like seriously like 5 or 10 BPM faster than the rest of the song. But it it worked because that's what was happening in the room, and we were trying to get that emotion out. And there are a lot of parts on this album where like Gus Mo's fills are like they're like this close to being out of time or weird. You know what I'm saying? But it does work. And I think that the same goes for a lot of my solo parts. They're not to the grid. And look, there's nothing wrong with that because there are a lot of bands that do that these days, and you know, that's what works for them. It's just, and it doesn't. We're fine enough getting by the way that we're doing it, you know, and we have a very quick turnaround time. I mean, we record like everyone we record, which is like you guys are like fucking. I cannot believe you got all this done in the amount of time that you did. Um, but yeah, I don't really know where it comes from. Like not using the clip because every other band I've ever been in, like I couldn't believe in Gus Mo when we first started playing. He was like, "Man, I don't want to use a click. Why? Like, why, dude?" And I think a lot of that is like he's very into garage rock and he wants to keep everything sounding like we're just a band and there will be flubs and you know I, I came to agree with that very quickly. I think a lot of people would disagree, that they would figure that it's a little harder with their workflow because editing things becomes a lot easier and it's a lot easier to snap everything onto the grid. But for our music, it doesn't work. It just doesn't. So we're going to keep doing it this way until, I don't know, we can't. But I can't see a world in that happening.
No, and I think honestly, as someone who spent a lot of time with this record, at least the digital version of this record, um, this is I think people are gonna I think this is also gonna open up a new kind of group of fans to you guys. I think sometimes people get intimidated by long songs or records with 4 or 5 songs on them, whatever it is. Like, if this is your intro to Restless Spirit, I think people are gonna then maybe take this and go backwards because I think this one, while a little more metal-y, I think this is going to open up like a new kind of understanding and fandom for you guys because I think this is, while the most metal, probably also the most accessible record of all of them, while still being, heavy and have all the guitars and the riffs and as we talked a little bit about messy, but I think it's also your most accessible record.
I would agree with that for sure. Especially a song like Desolation's Wake, which is coming out, I don't know, next week or something like that. Like that's as straightforward as the band gets. And funnily enough, I do agree with you that it's the most accessible record, and all of the songs we chose as singles, we purposely wanted the simpler ones. So by the time you get the album, you're like, this is not what I signed up for. These are like long, proggy songs. Like, what the fuck? Like, I thought it was gonna be this. Yeah, just to mess with people. But I think it would be a welcome surprise. Like, I'm not saying that as in back in the day, you'd hear the singles and the rest of the album sucks. It's just stylistically different than what you're getting with the singles. And I've often felt a little disappointed in bands when I listen to their singles and then, I finally got the full album. It's just more of the same. So it's like, all right, if we have to do singles, because that's, the way that the industry works, let's choose the ones that are not going to be as surprising, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I love that idea. Paul, we've kept you longer than we promised, but what I want to say is thank you. This is as amazing as usual. Thank you so much for doing this. It was very nice to meet you also in person when I got to meet you in Orlando. So
It
thanks
was a
for
good
coming
night,
out and
very
saying
good
hello
night.
to us. That was, yeah, great show. 4 bands that I really really enjoy. The new record is called Restless Spirit. Go on to Bandcamp now. It comes out on May 8th. Magnetic Eye Records. There is a splatter version and there was an orange version, which gave me a problem because everything I love is orange. I love everything orange. So, but there's also splatter, which is limited. So, what do? You buy both. That's what you do. You get both of them. This is what you do because you guys are going to love this record. And Paul, say hello to the guys for us in the band. Say hello to Gozu. I've been trying to get Gozu on the show. Hopefully, we'll have them too. We could talk about the shows that you guys are going to do. But Paul, thank you so much for joining us, talking about the record. Congratulations, and can't wait for everybody to hear this.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Later.
Hold on one